Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. So today's episode comes to you courtesy of one of my amazing patrons, Daniel, a general tier patron, and I truly could not do this without amazing patrons like Daniel. So again, Daniel, thank you so much. And for the personalized deck tech, Daniel chose an incredibly unique build. I love this. Joda the Unifier with experience counters. My goodness, I love this concept, and this is the perfect commander for it. A 5/5 human wizard for 5 mana in Wooburg. That's right, one of each color. Legendary creatures you control get +X for X the number of legendary creatures you control. And whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards to the top of your library to exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost, but the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. Basically, legendary cascade. So we cast a legendary spell and we hit something else that is legendary. Like, you know, maybe those experience counter legendary creatures out there that build around, you know, experience counters, building more and more and more and more of those, gaining more and more and more powerful effects. And when we have multiple of them in play, getting a ton of them, and of course having other ways to manipulate the amount of counters we have as well. Yeah, this is a really fun build, and it of course is a very budget-friendly build as well. Even though the actual experience counters cards themselves, we'll get to something here in a bit, some of them can be quite pricey. That being said, according to Moxfield, $37.30 for this deck, not including shipping or basics, but you might already have those. That being said, of course, the budget can be extended quite a bit as well if you want to throw in some other really exciting legendaries or some other kind of tutor effects too. That being said, still incredibly impactful with this build as well. Let's jump into those tactics. So first up, tactic number 1, count on us. So in this tactic, I'm going to be taking you through the creatures, the legendary creatures that have those experience counters, the ones that we're going to be cascading into. And yeah, Azlask is a crazy good one, a great finisher for us itself. A 2/2 Eldrazi for 3 mana. Whenever it or other colorless creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. By paying Wooburg, we give our creatures +X until turn, where X the number of experience counters you have. Signs and spawns you control gain Indestructible and Annihilator 1 until end of turn. So, quite the spicy kind of a card for this kind of a build. That being said, next up, Daxos the Return, a 2/2 zombie soldier for 3 mana in Orzhov. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you get an experience counter, so that's one way to start building those as well. That being said, pay 3 mana in total, put a white and black spirit enchantment creature token on the battlefield. It has power, toughness, each equal number of experience counters you have. So this can help us generate a giant army throughout the game that gets bigger and bigger and bigger based on those experience counters. Next up, Kelsian the Plague, a 2/2 human assassin with vigilance and haste for 3 mana in Mardu. +1 for each experience counter you have, so this can be a really heavy hitter for us. On top of that, tap 1 name chart creature you don't control. When it dies this turn, you get an experience counter. So either taking out some really small creatures, or if we know a creature is going to get taken out, just ping it first before it gets taken out to start building those up. Moving on, Azuri Claw of Progress, a 3/3 elf warrior for 4 mana in Simic. Whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield to control, you get experience counter. At the beginning of combat on your turn, get X counters on another target creature controller, X the number of experience counters you have. So yes, tiny creatures coming into play, get more and more experience counters from us, and then of course, hey, you know what? Just dump a ton of counters onto something to make it absolutely massive and hit even harder than it already does, thanks to our commander's amazing pump effect. Moving on, Calamity Disciple by Roas, a 3/3 giant soldier for 4 mana in Boros. Double Strike Vigilance, whenever a creature spell with converted mana cost 5 or greater is cast, you get an experience counter. We've got plenty of those we'll be talking about, specifically our build around that here in a little bit. That being said, gets +1 for each experience counter you have. So again, another incredibly heavy hitter that at some point will very easily become a one-shot KO for us, thanks to, well, that Double Strike, thanks to its own pump effect, and thanks to our commander's pump effect too. Next up, Narrative Clendel Toth. So much value to be had with this. A 3/4 human shaman for 4 mana in Golgari. Another creature you control dies, get experience counter. This might be one of the most easy ones to actually build up experience counters with. That being said, at the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. That card's mana value is less than or equal to the experience counters you have. Return to the battlefield, otherwise spin your hand. Yeah, getting them back to our hand can still be a very good thing as well, but yeah, cheating them in play, even better. Minthara, Merciless Soul, a 2/2 Elf Cleric for 4 mana, and Orzhov, Ward X for X the number of experience counters you have, so this can be really hard to actually deal with. That being said, at the beginning of your end step, a permanent control left the battlefield this turn, you get experience counter. And creatures you control at +1/0 for each experience counter you have. So again, yet another massive pump effect for our team. Mystics of the Is Magnus, this can get absurd. A 2/2 Goblin Wizard for 4 mana in Izzet. When you're casting instant sorcery spells with converted mana cost greater than the number of experience counters you have, you get an experience counter. So you keep building that up, up, and up. And then on top of that, instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less for each experience counter you have. So yeah, we can cast some massive spells very, very cheaply with this. Finally, Othari, Sun's Glory, a 3/3 Phoenix for 5 mana and Boros, flying lifelink haste. When it attacks, you get an experience counter, then create a 2/2 red rebel creature token that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. By paying 4 mana in total, you can tap a rebel you control to bring it back from the grave or the battlefield tapped. Now, keep in mind that this one is at 5, but all of the other ones are at 4 or less. And that is something that we need to note because it's quite important going forward. Moving on to tactic number 2, though, legendary counting. Before we jump into the mana value conundrum, first up, some other legendaries that can help us as well with something very specific with this deck. Proliferation. Cathay Mechanist is a great one to help us with that. A 3/3 Dwarf Artificer for 4 mana in Jeskai. Fabricate 1. Other non-token creatures you control Fabricate 1, which is quite nice, so we can get extra servos in play or counters on them. That being said, pay 2 tap, choose 1. Populate or proliferate. And typically, yeah, we're going to be proliferating those experience counters so we get more and more and more of them. Next up, Azuri Stalker of Spheres. 3/3 legendary creature for Phyrexian Elf Warrior for 4 mana in Simic. Enters the battlefield, we can pay 3, and I suggest you do, because if you do, proliferate twice. And when you do so, draw a card. So, again, getting 2 experience counters, drawing 2 cards, what's not to love about that? On top of, and here's a little hint moving forward, we're going to have a lot of proliferate effects going forward, so we're going to be drawing a lot of cards with this. And finally, Rolesque Apex Hybrid, a 4/5 Human Mutant for 5 mana in Simic, Flying Trample, enters the battlefield, 2 counters other creature you control, which again can be great with these proliferate effects. Of course, on top of that, when it dies, proliferate, then proliferate again. So we're able to get a lot of value out of this. Again, those experience counters are worth their weight in gold for this deck, and we can get a ton of them thanks to this and more. Next up, tactic number 3, keep counting, and keep counting we shall with more proliferate effects like Thirsting Roots. Sorcery for just a single mana, go get a basic land into your hand, or proliferate, so some great mana fixing for us, or proliferation. Contentious Plan, very simple, very effective. Proliferate, draw a card. Experimental Augury, very similar, look at the top 3 cards of your library. 1 goes into your hand, the rest of bottom of your library in any order. And also proliferate too. Graceful Apparition is a repeatable proliferate effect, a 1/1 flying spirit, so some good evasion there. Deals combination with player or planeswalker, we're going to be proliferating. Speaking of repeatable, in low to the ground, Metastatic Evangel, another non-zone creature in his battlefield under control, re-proliferate, and that's going to be a lot throughout the game. I mean, just think about, okay, you cast, say a legendary creature at maybe 5 mana or 4 mana, and you cascade down into one that costs, 1 less than that, essentially. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I just got 2 proliferate counters for that, so yeah, more experience counters to be had. A lot of fun can be had, and a lot of explosive turns can happen with this deck. Thrumming Bird, another great card as well, repeatable, 1/1 flyer that gets through, deals combination with a player, and we proliferate. Unnatural Restoration, great way to get something back out of our graveyard, a permanent card, and we also proliferate. Flux Channeler, this can get absurd, especially in combination with the Is Magnus. Yeah, whenever you're casting a non-creature spell, proliferate. So yeah, we're gonna get a ton of experience counters with this. Guild Pack Informant, yet another evasive creature. Dealing combination with a player or planeswalker, we proliferate. Steady Progress, very simple, very effective. Draw a card at instant speed for 1 mana. And proliferate. Tezzeret's Gambit takes it a step further, draw 2 cards and proliferate. And yeah, this costs 1 mana more, or let's just say 2 life more, because we're just going to pay 3 mana for this most of the time. And then finally, Broker's Confluence, proliferate a ton, because we can choose 3, the Sade mode more than once if we want to, and usually we will. Proliferate 3 times, that's huge. Or we can make a creature phase out, or counter activate a triggered ability, whatever you need, but most of the time, yeah, 5 mana to proliferate 3 times instant speed can be game changing. And speaking of game-changing, tactic number 4, dig down. Now, this is where we dig down into the strategy around this commander because, again, we're going to be legendary cascading. So, the vast majority of our experience counter legendary creatures are at 4 mana. So we're going to be casting 5 mana legendaries, essentially exclusively to go down into them, to cascade into them and get them into play, to dig down for those experience counters creatures so that we get to build those up. Now we do have a couple, again, like I showed off earlier, in the Proliferate area that cost less than 5. That being said, the vast majority of the time when we cast any of these 5 mana legendary cards, and we've got a ton of them, all exclusively at 5 essentially, we are going to be guaranteed nearly every single time to hit an experience counter creature to get things going. So first up, Dragonlord Ojutai, a 5/4 Elder Dragon, flying, hexproof, it's untapped, and then it deals combat to a player. We get to look at the top 3, 1 into our hand, the rest of the bottom of our library to any order. Yeah, a great card draw engine for us essentially. Speaking of which, Karuga the Macro Sage, 5/4 Dino Hippo, because that's the thing, enters the battlefield, draw a card for each other permanent control they convert mana cost 3 or greater, which again is going to be a ton with that cascade magic. Next up, Mr. Foxglove, a 3/5 Fox Rogue with lifelink. Attacks, draw cards equal the difference in the number of cards in the defending player's hand minus the number of cards in your hand. If you didn't draw cards this way, you can cheat out a creature card from your hand on the battlefield, which can be quite nice. Either way, either a lot of card advantage or cheat something out. Then there's Omnath, Locus of All. 4/4 for Rexian Elemental. If you lose unspent mana, comes black instead. So basically a mana bank for us. But on top of that, beginning of your pre-combat main phase, look at the top card of your library. Reveal if it has got 3 or more colored mana symbols in its cost. If you do, add 3 mana combination of colors and put it in your hand. If you don't, put it in your hand. So yeah, basically we're going to be able to say, you know what we're going to be doing with this? Getting a lot of mana, because we've got a lot of different mana symbols in this deck, and also get a lot of card advantage with this too throughout the game. Rain Angel of Rebirth is a great protection effect for us, or at least value engine for us depending on the situation. 5/4 Angel, flying other multicolored creatures you control with ++0, so another little pump effect there. That being said, another multicolored creature control dies, bring it back to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So yeah, board wipe protection or just general, oh, you took out my creature, it's coming back, and I'm going to cast it again to then cascade further. Tatyova Benthic Druid, yeah, an incredible draw engine for us. 3/3 Merfolk Druid for 5 mana. Land enters battlefield under control, gain 1 life, draw a card. That's going to happen a ton. We've got a lot of ramp in this deck as well. Council of 4, a really cool engine for us as well. 0/8 Human Noble for 5 mana. Player draws their second card during their turn. You draw a card. That's going to be happening a lot. On top of that, whenever a player casts their second spell during their turn, you create a 2/2 White Knight creature token. Also going to be happening a lot in this format that we call Commander. Vivisurgence Insight, draw 3, proliferate, very simple, very effective. Xyrosy Writhing Storm, a 3/5 Snake Leviathan for 5 mana in total. Flying. Don't draws a card, except the first they draw on each of their draw steps, create a 1/1 green snake creature token. Did I mention that Commander players like to draw cards? Yeah, we're going to be taking advantage of our opponents doing that as well. On top of that, whenever a deal is coming to a player, you and that player each draw that many cards, which again is going to be a significant amount thanks to our Commander's pump effect as well. And finally, Yenit. Yeah, this is going to help us out a lot too. 3/5 Sphinx for 5 mana. Flying Vigilance Menace. Attacks you with the top card of your library. You can cast up paying its mana cost if its mana value is odd, which again, we just went through a lot of 5 mana, and believe me, we've got more as well. If you don't cast it, you draw a card. So some card advantage there instead if we need it. Moving on though, tactic number 5, the golden pig of this deck. The number 1 card out of our 99 is, in my opinion, Hero's Podium. A ledger artifact for 5. Each ledger creature control gets ++1 for each other ledger creature you control. Just stopping right there, this is basically what our commander does essentially. Our commander is basically this, and now we've got a second version of our commander in play, minus that cascade portion, but still a way to massively pump our team to oblivion, essentially. Being like, oh yeah, even my tiniest little like 2/2 whatever legendary creature that I have in play now is absurdly massive, because for every single legendary creature I have in play, they're basically getting +2/+2, and they can become game enders on their own now. We can also pay X and tab, look at top X card to your library, reveal a legendary creature card from them, put them in your hand, the rest of your library random order. Basically a great card advantage engine for us as well. We've got a lot of legendaries to hit with this, so this can really help us out throughout the game. But yeah, a massive pump effect that can be game ending. What's not to love about that? Next up, tactic number 6, break stuff, and we definitely will be doing that with Cankerbloom, a 3/2 for Phyrexian Fungus. For 1 mana, we sacrifice it, choose one, start an artifact or enchantment, or proliferate. So yeah, if we have the experience counters going, we can do that. If we need to get rid of a pesky artifact or enchantment, we do that instead. Contagion class, though, a great way to take out a creature and proliferate repeatedly throughout the game. Enters the battlefield, get a counter on target creature that is a -1/-1 counter, and proliferating is great for that for us. Pay 4, tap, proliferate. Drawing an Core, we're going to be giving a creature -4/-4 until I've turned in, also proliferating with that too. Mass Vandal, ETB, this is a changeling, by the way. Enters the battlefield, it can exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, get rid of an artifact or enchantment opponent controls. Serum Snare, bounce a non-land permanent back to its owner's hand. If it was small, mana value 3 or less, we proliferate as well. Smell Fear, yeah, any of our creatures fighting any of our opponent's creatures, we're going to win that fight pretty much all the time. Proliferate and also have a creature fight, and yeah, with that pump effect from Joda and other things as well, they stand no chance. Boom, Child of Alara, though. Speaking of standing no chance, 6/6 Trampler, which again, Trample does come in handy with our Commander's Pump effect. On top of that, though, when this dies, everything goes away. A great panic button for us. Destroy all non-land permanents that can't be regenerated. Next up, Garth, One Eye, an amazing toolbox card. Tap, choose a card name has been chosen from Disenchant, Brain Geyser, Terror, Shivan Dragon, Regrowth, Black Lotus. Create a copy of it, and then you can cast the copy. So yeah, a lot of value, a lot of removal as well to be had with this. Speaking of removal, though, Urza's Ruinous Blast, a one-sided massive board wipe for us, because it's a legendary sorcery itself, so do keep in mind we cascade from this as well. That being said, exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. Our deck is built around legendary. Our opponent's deck's probably not, so goodbye. Everything but your commander, most likely. Finally, Yawgmoth's Vile Offering. Again, a legendary sorcery, so keep in mind with that cascade. On top of that, put up to 1 target creature planeswalker from a graveyard on the battlefield to control. On top of that, destroy up to 1 target creature planeswalker and exile this. So get rid of something and get something. What's not to love? Moving on to tactic number 7, though, Helping Hands, and Gigantha will be helping us out a ton. 5/5 Elemental Elk for 4 and a Gruul, but this is going to tap for Wooburg, and again, we've got a lot of things that cost Wooburg, or, a lot of mana value, like, our commander, so this can help us out a lot throughout the game. Keep in mind, it can't be spent to cast, generic mana cost things, but it can pay for those pips for us, though. Roxanne Starfall Savant, this is a 4/3 cat druid for 5 mana and Gruul. Enters the battlefield or attacks, we make a tap cost artifact token named Meteorite. When enters the battlefield, 2 damage to any target. So a nice way to maybe say take some medium to small creatures down. And on top of that, it taps for 1 mana of any color. Whenever you tap an artifact token for mana, you get an extra mana. So yeah, now all of a sudden we are entering the battlefield with this. We're attacking with it. We're getting a lot of mana from it to utilize. And then finally, Eudora Grave Gardener, a 5/5 Truefolk Druid for, again, 5 mana. Again, that is the key to these legendary creatures, that 5 mana. On top of that, though, whenever another non-token creature you control dies, when you return to the battlefield face down, aren't so control, it's a forest land. So being able to essentially say, oh, you got taken out, well, that's okay, because now all of a sudden you are in the garden. You are a forest, and you're giving me extra mana to get more things out and cascade even further into more things. Next up, though, tactic number 8, start the party, and we will be doing that, of course, with... First up, there's Wayfarer's Bubble. Pay 2, tap, sacrifice, get a basically in a pay tap. Font of Fertility, basically exact same thing, but on an enchantment. Then we've got Fertile Ground. Speaking of enchantments, a great way to enchant one of our lands, and it taps for an extra mana of any color. Rampant Growth, the OG ramp spell. Get a basic in play tap for 2 mana. Edge of Autumn, exact same thing if we got 4 or fewer lands. If not, cycle it away by sacrificing a land. Speaking of sacrificing, Sakura Tribe Elder, sorry Steve, we're going to be sacrificing you to basically Rampant Growth. Cultivate, we get 2 basics, 1 goes into play tap, 1 goes into our hand. Growth Spasm, again, those Eldrazi spawns. We get to go get that basic, make an Eldrazi spawn as well. So this is basically a double ramp spell for 3. A little temporary with that Eldrazi spawn, but it can be quite nice. Harrow, sacrifice 1 land, get 2 basics into play, untap. Search for Tomorrow, a great turn 1 play. Suspend it for 2, get a basic into play, untap. Springbloom Druid, we're going to be sacrificing 1 land, getting 2 basics into play, tap. Migration Path, go get 2 basics into play, tap, or cycle away if you don't need it. Speed of Eldrazi, though, back to them. Kozilek's Unsealing, when you're casting a creature spell, mana value 4, 5, of course, or 6. Create 2/0/1 Eldrazi spawn creature tokens with sacrifice this creature, add colorless. We're casting a creature spell, mana value 7 or greater, draw 3 cards. A ton of value is going to be had with this. This is kind of a way to, well, flood the board with Eldrazi spawn, which is lovely for one of our experienced counter creatures. On top of that, though, Yeah, we're going to be casting a lot of 5 mana value things, which then cascade into lower things too. A lot of mana value to be had from those. And then, of course, skittering Invasion. Yeah, we're going to go pretty big in this as well. A giant kind of ritual effect for us that just floods the board with Eldrazi spawn. What's not to love about that? 7 mana, make 5/0/1 Eldrazi spawns that we can sacrifice 4 mana. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.